Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Martin O'Neill. At the Monroe County Public Library Board of Trustees meeting on October 19th, Director Greer Carson gave his monthly report. Carson said the marketing department has been successful with their promotional efforts and that the Friends of the Library also held a successful book sale.
Our marketing department updates highlight a number of increased use trends relative to the monthly promotional efforts that we make. So, for example, Credo Reference, the new eLibrary Access for Schools webpage, our Medicare 101 program, and staff picks titles related to Banned Books Week a couple weeks back. Patrons are noticing these promotional efforts, and we're seeing increases in use trends as a result. So it's well worth it. This is something that we tend to highlight every month in the director's report, but there were 3 or 4 pieces in the marketing update this time around that really stood out to me. Our vital programs creating English to-go kits for refugees and asylum seekers, thanks in part to support from our local South Central Community Action Program. Our young bookmobile patrons got an opportunity to vote on a theme we would use to decorate the inside of the vehicle, and so the bookmobile became the Beachmobile for the month of September. And our foundation's fall book sale saw record sales, so thank you to our Friends of the Library staff, board members, and volunteers for coordinating such a successful sale.
Next, Financial Officer Gary Lettler asked the board to adopt the 2023 library budget. He explained how much the library expects to raise from taxes next year.
Last month at the public hearing, we went over the 2023 budget numbers in some detail. Tonight, we have the final step of the budget process, which is approval of the adoption form. The first column on the adoption form has the spending budget for each of the library's funds. The total spending budget for all the funds is $12,886,224. The second column is the budgeted revenue from the operating fund tax levy and the debt fund levy. The operating fund tax levy is about $7.4 million. The debt levy is about $900,000. The third column is the tax rate. The combined operating fund and debt fund tax rate for 2023 is 8.38 cents per $100 of assessed value. And that compares to last year, 9.25 cents. So this chart shows how the 2023 tax rate compares to the years all the way back to 2011. And you can see that in 2011, we were at nearly 11 cents total, and now we're down to 8.38 cents. So the drop in the 2023 library tax rate shows how the large increase in the county's assessed value is driving the tax rate down, even as the library's revenue from property taxes increases by 5%.
The board unanimously approved the 2023 budget. The board then heard from Adult Services Manager Elizabeth Gray, who gave an update on the recent works of the Adult Services Department and how they have provided engaging events for the citizens of Monroe County.
Programs about plants proved to be very popular this year. These programs included plant and seed swaps, native and invasive plant walks, garden pest control, a wildflower identification walk, and native seed propagation. We partnered with Purdue Extension and Monroe County Identify and Reduce Invasive Species for several of these events. Additionally, the Seed Library gave out over 6,000 packets of seeds to the community this year. We continue to work to build a partnership with HealthNet, a group that provides health care as well as a wide range of resources for those experiencing homelessness. HealthNet attempts to reach folks where they are to make it easy for them to connect with those most in need of their services. When we had a patron experiencing a crisis, I contacted HealthNet, and they immediately responded to assist the person in the library, even though it was not their scheduled time to be here. Our CHOP Challenge, created by librarian Maggie Hutt, continues to be a very popular program. It drew the attention of Goods for Cooks, who asked to partner with us by providing recipe ideas and prizes for the program. Librarian Christine Friesel continues to lead the work on Monroe County Field Notes, which is a virtual dig for early 19th century landmarks and people. Patrons not only research their own parcel histories, but help us track down where our earliest Black residents lived. We discover new leads about the Underground Railroad. On November 15th, Christine will present Mapping with the Monroe County Field Notes, introducing a beta digital story map that highlights the field notes contributed from our community and staff. This project will continue into 2023. The Bears in the Library's Plaza saw music programs, craft programs, and poetry in the plaza, where local poets performed to celebrate National Poetry Month. Librarian Maggie Hutt and presenter Deepa Shah created our Golden Agers Club for folks 60 and up. These meetings help provide seniors with an opportunity to make connections while enjoying a variety of activities, including stories, brain-boosting games, movement sessions, and discussions. In conjunction with the City of Bloomington and the IU Arts and Humanities Council's Grand Falloon, we hosted the Fix-It Fair again. Local professionals are available to provide free repairs or help patrons learn to do their own repairs on all kinds of items. Over 100 people attended, fixing items ranging from a teddy bear to a cuckoo clock.
At the Bloomington City Council meeting on October 19th, the Council heard from the Assistant Director of Sustainability, Lauren Clemens, who presented the Climate Action Plan. Clemens shared that the city is working on achieving carbon neutrality by 2050 and has already reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 16% from 2006 to 2018. She added that emissions are expected to decrease another 9% by 2030.
Bloomington's greenhouse gas emissions are predominantly generated by consumption of electricity and natural gas to heat and cool buildings across the community. In 2018, 1.3 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent were emitted in Bloomington, and between 2008 and 2018, emissions have dropped 16%, in part due to reduced emissions associated with energy production. Under a business-as-usual scenario, we can expect that greenhouse gases are projected to decrease an additional 9% by 2030 and 43% by 2050. Successful implementation of the actions and strategies in the Climate Action Plan will be necessary to achieve an additional roughly 322,000 metric ton of emission reductions modeled.
Clemens said the complete 2022 Climate Action Plan report is available on the city's website at bloomington.in.gov/sustainability. Later in the meeting, the council heard an appropriation ordinance of $100,000 for an emergency reproductive health care program to help address the impacts of Indiana's near total ban on abortion. Bloomington Corporation Counsel Beth Kate provided the background on the state abortion ban.
After the Dobbs decision, as you are also very aware, the Indiana General Assembly met in the summer to review and to revise Indiana's abortion laws. And on August 5th, the General Assembly passed and the governor signed into law Senate Bill 1, which imposes a near total ban on abortions performed in the state. So basically, SB 1 bans all abortions performed in the state from the moment of fertilization, except for the following things. Abortions that occur in the first 10 weeks of post-fertilization age of the fetus when the pregnancy resulted from rape or incest. When reasonable medical judgment indicates that abortion is needed to prevent death or a serious risk of substantial and irreversible physical, but not psychological or emotional or economic, harm to the patient, or when reasonable medical judgment indicates that there's a fetal anomaly that is reasonably certain to result in the child's death within 3 months of live birth. So there are some abortions that are still lawful in the state, but those exceptions are very narrow. And what SB 1 also did was to make access to even those abortions much more difficult by requiring that all abortions that may still lawfully be performed in the state be performed in either a hospital or in a hospital-owned ambulatory surgical center, outpatient surgical center, rather than in the clinics that for decades have been providing the vast majority of abortions safely and effectively in the state. As you may know, abortion services in hospitals and ASCs, those ambulatory surgical centers, are severely restricted geographically here in Indiana, and they are substantially more expensive than clinics and clinic-based abortion care. So what that means is that access to even the few abortions that people still can get lawfully in the state under SB 1 are nearly impossible as a practical matter, especially for residents with low incomes. Studies show that the risk of death associated with childbirth is substantially higher than that associated with abortion. And as you may also be aware, Indiana's infant and maternal mortality rates are among the worst in the nation.
Kate provided an overview of the ordinance and walked through the current status of the abortion ban.
It is seeking to obtain some funding to help ameliorate the impacts that people will feel as a result of SB 1. As you know from the recent budget hearings, there was an additional $100,000 appropriation in the budget for 2023 for the same fund that we are talking about tonight. This is a fund that Director Callender Anderson will describe more fully in a minute. But that will be an open competitive grant program for community organizations to come forward and seek funding to assist residents who are experiencing negative impacts as a result of SB 1. Now, I should say that there is litigation afoot challenging SB 1. There have been 3 lawsuits filed to date that I'm aware of that are challenging the validity of SB 1 under a combination of state statutory and constitutional claims and some federal constitutional claims as well. Currently, there is a stay on the operation of SB 1. It went into effect about a week after the law took effect. So the law was in effect for a week, and then a trial judge in one of these cases issued an injunction staying the operation of that law pending further litigation over the merits of the claims against it. There was a hearing as well last week on Friday in another one of the cases that has been filed seeking an injunction as well, but it's already in place. In the first case that I mentioned, the Indiana Supreme Court has now agreed to review that case. It has set a hearing for January 12th. And it has left in place the injunction. What that means is that SB 1 is not in operation at the moment, okay, for now. And then the Supreme Court will hear the challenges to the law. The trial court judge had found, as you see a reference to in my memo, with Appropriation Ordinance 22-04, that there was a reasonable likelihood that SB 1 does in fact violate state constitutional provisions. The Indiana Supreme Court will determine that in January or thereafter. It's unclear how long it will take for the court to rule. But in the meantime, the litigation uncertainty and the needs that attend the restriction of access to abortion will still prompt for us a desire to make funding available to address those concerns, to address the needs that have arisen. And that's really what we're here asking for your help with tonight in the form of Appropriation Ordinance 22-04.
The Council voted unanimously to approve the appropriation ordinance. And we'll have more from CATSweek right after this.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the causes to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community. Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Bloomington Board of Park Commissioners meeting on October 18th, Operations and Development Division Director Tim Street asked the board to approve a contract with Mater Design for Griffey Lake Crossing construction. Street outlined what the contract would entail and how it would be funded.
Happy to come before you tonight with a contract with Mater Design in the amount of $12,500 that will be funded through TIF funds approved through the Bloomington Redevelopment Commission. That funding was actually approved at last night's RDC meeting, so that step is completed, and now to finalize the contract we need the Board of Park Commissioners approval. What this contract will do is Mater Design will provide construction administration, bid doc preparation, engineering services, et cetera, for the Griffey Dam Trail Crossing project. And just a general reminder with the Griffey project, we have 3 phases basically happening with that project. The first phase we completed, which was the trail crossing on the east side and the pilot project of trail on the south shore. This will essentially be the second phase. We hope to bid this winter and construct this next year, which will take care of the safe dam crossing. And then we will use the remaining bicentennial bond funds next year once the master plan for the trail is delivered later this year to construct as many improvements and the best improvements we can to complete that approximate 6-mile loop.
The board approved the contract unanimously. The board also approved a contract with Winterland Incorporated to rent equipment for the Winter Lights December Nights event at Switzyard Park. Community Events Manager Leslie Brinson shared what the contract would include.
The Parks Department will be hosting the second Winter Lights December Nights on Saturday, December 3rd at Switzyard Park. During the event, Winterland will provide the delivery, setup, and takedown of standalone light fixtures to be displayed around the park. These lights will actually remain in the park for the entire month of December. The department will rent several standalone light displays from Winterland, and we are purchasing, we actually were able to purchase 2 displays this year after some additional sponsorship money. And we worked with the same department in 2021 and really appreciated their flexibility, their willingness to come work with us. And one of the few companies in Indiana that actually rents the light displays as opposed to making you purchase them. So this year the theme is Candyland.
On October 18th, at the Bloomington Climate Action Resilience Committee meeting, Councilmember Matt Flaherty outlined a proposal to decrease air pollution in Bloomington by phasing out gas-powered equipment. Flaherty explained that one strategy of the Climate Action Plan is to reduce citywide gas and diesel-powered construction, recreation, and lawn equipment.
So the first first action is to introduce a policy to replace city off-road and lawn equipment with electric and low-carbon fuel alternative options at the time of replacement, with traditional internal combustion engine as optional, requiring proof of need. Establish emission standards, testing, and biofuel preference for any combustion vehicles remaining in the equipment fleet. Encourage county, school district, and Indiana University to develop and implement their own policies. So that's one action. The next is to develop an incentive program to convert fuel-burning lawn equipment, such as gas-powered lawnmowers and blowers, to electric. Coordinate with Duke Energy for support and identification of additional rebate programs to promote electric yard equipment. That's the second action. And the third one, establish a gas-powered lawn equipment phase-out ordinance, transitioning to lawn equipment powered by electricity, alternative clean fuels, and decrease noise pollution levels. In terms of phasing, the first action I read is phase 1. The next 2 are phase 2 actions. So that's what the Climate Action Plan says. I'll also note that, as you all know, we've had Hugh Kramer and a few other folks come to council a few times over the last few years, highlighting this issue and how it's a real burden. I think mostly from a noise pollution perspective, but probably a local air pollution perspective as well. in their immediate vicinity of their homes.
Economic and Sustainable Development Director Alex Crowley said the Office of the Mayor is interested in moving forward and wants to get the public's input on how to best regulate gas-powered emissions.
I think his feeling, I think he's supportive of it. I think the feeling is we're not exactly sure what the right answer is, but we don't want to have unforeseen consequences as a result of not having thought through it properly at the beginning. And so the idea behind airing out, having some hearings, having people in from industry, from the private, from residents and whatever, is just to try to capture, all right, what are we not thinking of? How do we structure this? What are the ones, and we've looked a little bit already at around the country, so we know what's out there, but what's the one that makes the most sense for us here, and just have that out, right? And then we can make a judgment about what the right answer is. I don't know that we know right now what the answer should be here, and people have opinions, but their voices of 1 and 2 of the public, and they aren't necessarily representative of the public. So I think we just need to understand generally what would work.
The committee discussed holding a public hearing on the ordinance in the near future. And we'll have more from CATSweek right after this.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the October 17th meeting of the Monroe County Community Justice Response Committee, County Commissioner Julie Thomas provided a transportation update for the potential new jail site at Fullerton Pike. Thomas said the Fullerton Pike property has not been finalised as a site for the new jail, and that the committee's conversations with Bloomington Transit are ongoing.
We do recognize the significance of transportation as an issue no matter where we are, and that transportation is not something that we can move past where we are currently, which is after having those initial discussions and some really good conversations with Bloomington Transit. And they're not in a position to say, yes, we will do X, Y, Z, and we're not in a position to say, here's where our property is going to be. So we're in a holding pattern. And there really isn't anything else for this group to do at this point regarding transportation. We recognize it's really the council and commissioners who are going to have to make this happen, because if it turns out that we cannot utilize Bloomington Transit, then we're going to have to come up with something else and pay for it. And we're perfectly well aware that this has to be solved, but there's nothing that can be done regarding transportation at this point until we have property. And in fact, one of the key questions that comes up is about how, would Bloomington Transit access Fullerton Pike? Well, Fullerton Pike's not even built yet. So, it's kind of early for a lot of these questions for them as well.
Next, the committee gave an update on its substance use disorder priorities and discussed how the county plans to utilize funds from an opioid settlement. County Council member Peter Iverson said some of the funds from the settlement could be used to better treat substance abuse disorder and reduce recidivism rates in the jail.
So we have had information about an audit coming down into the county to collect as much data as possible. Yes. To determine the uses of the opioid settlement money, and that'll be split into those two pots of limited uses and non-limited uses. And I think that's really important to talk about at this meeting, because so much of what we're hearing in our jail right now is about substance use disorder, and it affects recidivism, and the uses of those funds can certainly help to potentially reduce recidivism rates in our jail, especially with a health focus. I think that's going to be something that, I just wanted to make sure that we're talking about that.
During public comment, resident Tayakwa Davis said while she's supportive of a new jail, she wants to see the county government tackle more mental health priorities. Davis said she recently lost her son to mental illness and substance abuse, and that she reached out to the city for help, to no avail.
My name is Tayakwa Davis, and I'm currently working on my PhD in human services and social work. And I was invited here, and I'm pleased with what I'm hearing. And as I was stating, the young man was talking about mental illness and opiates and drug usage. And I recently lost my son a few days ago to mental illness and drug addiction. And for a long time, I reached out to the city for help. And I just felt as though that we lost the battle because the system let him down. And my whole focus is the jail is great. I think building a new jail is, awesome. But what about a mental hospital to house our individuals that's out here walking around struggling, don't know what to do or who to turn to?
The Community Justice Response Committee will meet again on November 7th. And that's all from CATSweek. Thanks for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Martin O'Neill.